Hi, John Hand with the Pulsing Cinema, and the movie of the day is kind of a special movie. It's a very unique movie. I don't think I've ever seen another movie quite like this. It's Eyes of Fire, from director Avery Krunz. 1983 is the IMDb release date for it, but I think it was released much later than that. It was released by Vestron on VHS and Laserdisc around 1987, and then released in other parts of the world around that same time. And I think it did have a limited theatrical release. I think Avery Krunz and his production company four-walled the movie. They rented movie theaters across the United States and did, like a limited theatrical release like that. Because I know it played in an area close to my hometown, Pensacola. In the mid '80s, I think around '86. Because it's mentioned in a newspaper article that it played the Gulf Coast, it played Pensacola, and that it did relatively well, so forth. But Eyes of Fire, it's a horror movie. It's kind of a ghosts and goblins and spirits in the wood type movie. But the setting for it is very unique. It's set in the 1700s. It's set, around the mid-1700s. Colonial America, before America had declared its independence. And it's about a small village where this preacher has been accused of adultery. And his preacher has some followers, and he's cast out of the village. And along with his followers, he gets a mountain man, he gets a frontiersman, and he tags along with this group. And together they venture into this valley that even the Indians, they encounter the Indians during their travels. The Indians avoid this valley. They say that this valley is cursed, that there is these evil spirits that reside in this valley, but they don't heed the warning. This preacher leads this group into this valley, and they encounter the ghosts and the spectral entities that live there. They try to create a little settlement there, but bad things start to happen. And then the group begins to fall apart, and we really see that this preacher is really up in his own self-interest. He's trying to move forward, and he doesn't have the interest of the flock at heart. And then there is this young girl in the group, and she is like she has these powers. The idea is that she's from a witch, and that she herself is a witch, and she begins to fight these entities one-on-one. The movie is a real special movie. It's I'm sure that a historian could probably pick apart some of the inaccuracies in the dress and the wardrobe and the setting. But I mean, it's shot in the woods. I mean, I think the locations were in rural Missouri, and so it really feels like you're there in the colonial Americas, and you're there. You're with these people. Everything feels authentic, and it feels interesting. And the direction by Avery Krunz, who I don't think has really directed another film. I think he comes from a photography background, another art background. There is a website, I think, related to him online, and I haven't read many interviews with him. I mean, this is just such an interesting film to just come out of nowhere. And it's just it looks very good. It's obviously a low budget film, but it's very well mounted. The cinematography looks very good. It looks as good as the VHS and Laserdisc releases that we've seen allow it to look. I'm sure a nice high definition transfer of this film would just be quite beautiful, because there are some really beautiful optical effects throughout the film, and there's some good special effects, but they're optical effects more kind of like in the experimental, like, they reminded me of like Kenneth Anger. If Kenneth Anger had tried to make like a horror movie in the woods, and the kind of things that he does with people who are kind of like half naked and wandering through and covered in mud, and with bizarre optical effects and in-camera effects and things like that. It's a lot of stuff like that, just kind of layered together in order to give you a spooky feel. There are these things in the woods that are trying to attack this settlement. And the music by Brad Fiedel, of course, of the Terminator and Just Before Dawn, another kind of in the woods type horror film. I mean, it's just, again, it's that kind of ambient type of, spooky, scary stuff, which he's just a master at doing. Just that the tone and the sensibility of this film are just so magical. And all of the actors in this film are just so great. It's obvious they haven't done a lot of stuff, but they're just perfect for their roles. And the lead guy, the preacher, is played by this actor Dennis Lipscomb. Dennis Lipscomb he did a lot of TV. He was in A Soldier Story. I think he had a pretty big part in that. He did a lot of stuff. I think he had a starring role in this horror film Retribution, which was a movie, kind of a possession movie, and that I think that's his most widely seen starring role. But I guess he does star in Eyes of Fire, but I don't think that was as well seen as this. And he gives this really wonderful. He gives this wonderful performance as this, holier than thou, minister who's, trying to do the best thing for his flock. But then the ending, his comeuppance is rather grand, is rather spooky and scary. And, just to be clear, that the title of this film, Eyes of Fire, there are some eyes of fire in this film, and it is quite scary when you see them. I mean, it was a movie when I remember it very well when I watched it when I was a kid, rented on VHS from this little video store that was like just a trailer, on the edge of housing development, slapstick video, and. That was the name of the video store, Slapstick Video, and I remember I rented that Vestron and the cover of the Vestron VHS with that woman, that young girl, and I just remember watching the film, just like, I mean, it was just scary. It was scary. It really scared the hell out of me, and it was a movie kind of half fast forwarding past the things, And I rewatched it a couple of years ago. I found a video store and rented it here in Austin, and oh man, it just as an adult, it really still did it to me. It's a spooky, scary little movie. Dennis Lipscomb, one more thing I want to say about his performance, which is just so good. He does this little accent in the film, which reminds me of a Boris Karloff. Yeah, it's definitely kind of like a vague kind of Boris Karloff kind of accent. It always sounded like that, Americanized kind of English type of that Boris Karloff accent. It's very interesting. So anyway, Eyes of Fire. Oh man, just a great period horror film. I can't really think of a period horror film that is like Eyes of Fire. Often period horror films that are from that time period, they're a little later on, right? They're more like Western films. They're like, there's a kind of a tradition of like Western type horror films, like cowboy and Indian, like Western type, on the plain, type of horror films like Grim Prairie Tales and stuff like that. And I guess I think that's the closest cousin I can see to something like Eyes of Fire. I mean, I'm sure there's other films that are like Eyes of Fire, and damn, I want to see them. So probably European films are from that era. But I think of American horror films set in the 1700s in that era. There's not too many. I'm sure there's some I'm not thinking of, but maybe somebody can suggest a couple to me. But in any case, Eyes of Fire, a special, underseen, and great film that deserves to get a U.S. Home video release on Blu-ray. Definitely deserves a re-release.